Christopher Currin is who is presenting today, and Chris began his financial services career in 1984 and has been providing comprehensive financial services to his clients since the year 2000. Prior to joining Mercer Advisors, he served as president and founder of Pegasus Advisors. Chris's areas of interest and expertise include tax management, investment management, and retirement income and distribution planning. He also has a deep affinity for creating customized financial plans to meet the unique needs of those living with disabilities. Chris earned his liberal arts degree from St. John's College and is the founding member of Alliance of Comprehensive Planners. Y ahora en español, la presentación de nuestro orador del día de hoy se llama Christopher Currin. Chris comenzó su carrera en servicios financieros en el año 1984 y ha proveído servicios financieros comprensivos desde el año 2000. Antes de unirse a Mercer Advisors, sirvió como el presidente y fundador de Pegasus Advisors. Las áreas de interés y en las cuales es experto Chris son administración de impuestos e inversiones, ingresos de jubilación y planificación de distribución. También tiene una afinidad profunda por crear planes financieros para cumplir las necesidades únicas de las personas viviendo con discapacidades. Chris obtuvo su título en Artes Liberales en el Colegio St. John's y es uno de los miembros fundadores de Comprehensive Planners. Así que muchas gracias a Chris por estar aquí. Thank you very much, Chris, for being here today. We're going to go ahead and get started with interpretation in Spanish, and I'll pass the mic on back to you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alejandro. Appreciate it. And thanks to everybody else that's on the call today. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen here. And go. All right, let's see. Okay, sorry, let's see. Okay, I work in a highly regulated industry. So begin with this slide full of disclosures. The short version of the disclosures on the screen now. Every effort has been made to make this presentation accurate and truthful. But my purpose today is educational. No part of this presentation should be considered personal advice. Even if you find my message incredibly inspiring, please don't make any changes to your financial plans without consulting your own professional advisors. This quote from the founder of our firm, Kendrick Mercer, encapsulates our mission. We are focused on helping clients along their pathway to economic freedom and relief from anxiety around money. Mercer Advisors is a national firm. Our headquarters is in Denver, Colorado. We have now between 40 and 50 regional offices. We're managing about $20 billion for more than 12,000 clients. We are not product salespeople, but fiduciaries who are obligated by law to always place our clients' interests ahead of our own. We are a team of hundreds of professionals working on behalf of our clients. We're certified financial planners, chartered financial analysts, CPAs, and estate attorneys, and a big team operating all across the country. In my role as a client advisor, I work directly with individual clients, drawing upon the expertise of a team of specialists that are organized to provide a full range of integrated services. In today's presentation, I'm going to touch on topics from several of these different areas of specialization, and I just want to acknowledge that I owe a gratitude for many fellow professionals and colleagues who have helped me get my understanding in this area over the course of a couple of decades now. So let's start with a simple question. How big an issue is disability in our society? A simple answer to that question is hard to come by. But what I found by digging into this topic may surprise you. Reports from the Census and Center for Disease Control suggest that about 1 in 5 Americans, that's over 60 million of us, are living with a significant disability. Put that another way, there are about as many people with disabilities in the United States as there are Black Americans or Hispanic Americans. And this population is also growing rapidly. The principal driver of that growth is our increasing longevity. Less than 7% of Americans under the age of 18 have a disability. But among those of us who are 65 and older, the incidence of disability leaps to 35%. When looking at the population of disabled Americans as a whole, about 40% of them are over the age of 65. The focus of this talk, though, is the other 60%, that is 30 to 40 million folks who are trying to get an education, find a place to live, hold down a job, and do all the other things that we expect from valued and respected members of the community. Second question, why should we care about these 30 to 40 million vulnerable people? First, I've always thought that how we treat people with disabilities should be a universal concern, because every one of us is just a random blood clot or banana peel away from joining their ranks. And secondly, with each passing day, more of us have personal connections to this big group of folks. This is my son, Cormac. He is an accomplished young man of 26. In high school, he was an honor student and a cheerleader. For his Eagle Scout project, he produced a movie to teach kids first aid. And for many years, he sold downloads of that movie to raise money for Down syndrome research through his website, cheerleaderrescue.com. He is currently developing, until very recently, was developing his life and job skills at a local day program, had a regular volunteer gig, and competed in 4 Special Olympic sports. Cormac enjoys his life and has had a positive impact on many other people's lives as well. One quick example, another Scout's dad told me that his son was talking with him about what he wanted to do for his Eagle project. The father thought that maybe his son's plan was a bit too ambitious, and he shared that with his son, but the son's reply was, "Look, Dad, if Cormac made a movie, I can't just paint a couple of park benches and call it good." Here's the thing. If I had been born with Down syndrome, I would never have had a chance to live the sort of life that Cormac has. Until fairly recently, parents of children with any serious disability were routinely advised by their doctors and their pastors and lawyers to consign these children to state institutions, to go home and tell their family and friends that they had died at birth. The misery resulting from such practice is staggering. Doug Fisher from the University of California, San Diego tells the story of a woman who had lived in a state hospital for more than 20 years. She had a neurological condition that left her unable to walk or talk. She had been inside this place for so long that no one came to visit anymore. One day, a grad student showed up with a paper keyboard and a stylus attached to a headband. Not knowing what to expect, the researcher put the headband on this patient and watched as she tapped out the first words she'd been able to convey to someone in 2 decades. One short sentence: "Get me out of here." She did eventually move out of that hospital, found work as a data entry clerk, and now lives with supports in a home that she owns. Making that happen took time and a lot of social service expenditures. There is sadly no way to recover the years that she lost, isolated in a warehouse for people deemed unfit for life and community. Thankfully, a lot has changed over the course of our lifetimes. In the bad old days, there was no such thing as person-centered life planning for people with disabilities. So this question of how to create and support a secure and meaningful life for people with disabilities is a relatively new problem in financial planning. I found there are 3 phases to the planning process that will solve problems faced by families caring for a relative with disability. Preventing the worst case scenario, enhancing the financial plan, and creating better case scenarios. I will touch on each of these phases for you today, but first, we need to understand the fundamental programs on which all such plans are built. 4 government programs act as cornerstones of the foundation of support most people with disabilities need over the course of their lifetime. Getting and maintaining eligibility for these programs is a crucial component in special needs planning. Social Security and Medicare are insurance programs. We qualify for them by paying premiums in the form of taxes withheld from our paychecks. We're all familiar with Medicare and Social Security retirement benefits for older Americans, but there is also a Social Security disability income program for workers who become disabled before retirement age. A little known provision of that program is that receiving Social Security disability income for 24 months makes you eligible for Medicare. An even less well-known provision of the plan is that people whose disabilities are diagnosed before age 22 can become eligible for Social Security disability income and Medicare based on their parents' work history rather than their own. Supplemental security income and Medicaid are needs-based entitlement programs for people with very low incomes and less than $2,000 in financial assets. SSI pays up to $783 per month for a single person with a disability. Medicaid is a health insurance program, but it can also pay for various waiver programs that help with the cost of residential expenses, respite for caretakers, and a number of other things. Until the age of 18, a person with a disability may not qualify for these means-tested benefits because of their parents' income and assets. Because Medicaid is federally funded but administered by the states, there's a wide variance in availability and quality of services. In Texas, for example, a medically fragile or disabled person might languish for a decade or more on a waiting list before they can become eligible for Medicaid waiver programs. So this is a very important thing to share with you and other people that you may know. If a family with a child who has a disability if you yourself are a family like ours, or if you know a family that has a child with a disability, urge them to get on their state's waiting list for these programs by contacting their local intellectual and developmental disability authority or their local mental health authority. That's LIDDA, LMHA. You need to get on those interest lists in order to get a place in line for those programs. In their lifetime, a person with disabilities may need all 4 of these programs to cover many of their basic needs. However, means testing of Medicaid and SSI, that is the fact that you can't qualify for those unless you have less than $2,000 to your name, makes them susceptible to being undermined, losing the eligibility. I'll give you an example. Say a young person becomes eligible for SSI and Medicaid at age 18, and they receive benefits under those programs for 12 years. Then a parent or another relative dies and they leave a life insurance benefit of $100,000 to that individual with a disability, that inheritance immediately disqualifies them from means-tested benefits. And some or all of the cash may be confiscated by the state as a repayment for the benefits they had received the previous 12 years. So the first phase of special needs planning is typically focused on preventing this sort of financial disaster, which can prevent those of us who want to support our loved ones with disabilities from actually providing them with the means to live a better life. Now, simply disinheriting a person with a disability is not a good way of maintaining their eligibility for means-tested public benefits. Parents who leave money to a sibling or other close relative in the hope that they will care for the loved one out of moral obligation will simply leave too much to chance. Even if that heir truly cares about their relative with a disability, the funds set aside to care for them may be lost through a divorce or lawsuits or other legal hazards. A better way to ensure the orderly transfer of assets for the ongoing support of a person with a disability is to use a discretionary trust, which is also known as a supplemental needs trust or special needs trust. Specific language in the special needs trust prohibits the trustee or manager of the trust from using the trust funds to pay for the basic food, shelter, and medical benefits provided by government programs. Additionally, assets placed in such a trust are not owned, nor are they controlled by the beneficiary. Consequently, assets left in those trusts don't jeopardize the beneficiary's eligibility for means-tested government benefits. There are three basic types of special needs trusts. The first is called a third-party trust. That simply means that it is created and funded by someone other than the disabled beneficiary of the trust. This separation between the parties makes a difference after the beneficiary has died, because anything left over in that third-party trust can then pass on to contingent beneficiaries without deductions for the benefits received by the person with a disability during their lifetime. And that's the primary advantage of this third-party trust. Here's how transfers for a child with a disability might unfold over the course of their lifetime. While both parents are alive, they can make payments to vendors providing services for their child, either directly or as the trustee of a special needs trust. The fact that the money flows to the service providers rather than to the person with a disability means that this support does not disqualify the beneficiary. I can use my money or the money left to his special needs trust by his grandparents to pay for a vacation cruise for Cormac. But if I give him the money to pay for his vacation, as soon as it hits his bank account, it could disqualify him from means-tested benefits. After the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse, the individual estate of the person who's died passes to their surviving spouse, and he or she continues to provide support as before. No estate tax is due at the time of the first death. But upon the death of the second spouse, both federal and state estate taxes might be due. So after payment of those liabilities, if any, the remaining assets can be divided between the special needs trust and any other beneficiaries. The successor trustee continues to make distributions for the person with a disability until, upon their death, any assets left in the trust pass to the contingent beneficiaries specified by the original grantors, in this case, the parents. Many people will never accumulate a legacy big enough to make an individual special needs trust feasible. For them, the best solution may be a bequest to one of several master pooled trusts. These aggregate many grantors' assets to make the cost of professional management affordable. The Arc of Texas operates a master pooled trust, and the Center for Special Needs Trust Administration is one of a growing number of organizations providing these services across the country. I did a quick search on the web and was able to locate a Denver-based master pool trust, the Colorado Fund for People with Disabilities. Their website is cfptrust.org, cfptrust.org. And they provide a similar service, which allows many families to pool their assets together and manage those for the benefit of their loved ones with disabilities. Master pool trusts sometimes also act as co-trustees for individual trusts if the managers don't have the expertise needed to handle special needs issues. Finally, there is, in contrast to the third-party trust, what's called a first-party trust. This is also known as a Medicaid Payback trust. That is one that is funded with assets that are owned by the beneficiary. This sort of trust allows a beneficiary to qualify for means-tested benefits, and distributions from the trust are used to provide for their supplemental needs during their lifetime, but any assets that remain after the beneficiary's death can be reclaimed by the state as repayment of the benefits previously paid. So someone who receives a legal judgment from a medical malpractice or personal injury lawsuit might set up this sort of trust. You get $1 million judgment from a court of law. If you keep that $1 million in your bank account, you don't qualify for Medicaid or SSI. If you create a first-party trust and move that $1 million into that trust, it's no longer yours and you can qualify for those benefits. The final part of a disaster prevention plan is to wrap the framework you've created in a thick layer of protection against the other perils that can cause financial ruin. Spiraling medical expenses and the premature death of a breadwinner. So big medical bills are the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States. So it's no surprise that health insurance is often the most critical need in the wake of any serious medical diagnosis. You could say what you want about the state of healthcare in the United States and the ongoing battle to reform it, but one thing is certain: universal access to healthcare could take Medicaid out of the role of health insurer of last resort. And if you didn't have to be broke to get healthcare, then both special needs and elder care planning would become much less convoluted. For now, the provisions in the Affordable Care Act that move the ball in the direction of universal access to healthcare have made it easier for people with disabilities to get and keep health insurance. Whether or not we can afford to hang on to those improvements is still something that's to be determined. Life insurance is also more important to families with disabled dependents than it is for a typical household. Disability increases the household expenses and almost certainly decreases household income. Even if both parents keep their jobs outside the household, the extra work and worry of caring for a relative with disability will reduce their earning power. So families like ours may need more life insurance coverage than our typical neighbors. Also, providing for a child with a disability is one of the best reasons for buying at least some permanent life insurance. A second to die or survivorship life insurance policy is often the most appropriate product for funding the special needs trust. More on this in just a bit. So the three key elements of a special needs worst case scenario prevention plan are: one, a clear understanding of the relevant government benefits programs. That's your foundation. Two, an appropriate estate plan. That's your framework. And three, an adequate insurance plan to ensure the fulfillment of that plan. That's like the roof and walls that you built on the framework on your foundation. Most of the financial services firms that with any sort of special needs programs are focused solely on this part of the process. Having come this far, you've kept a tough situation from becoming a worst case scenario, but there's much more to do if you're intent upon helping create a better case scenario. The next phase of the process involves beefing up the basic financial plan. All of the usual financial planning tools and techniques apply, but they must be modified and adapted to meet the needs of families with disability issues in much the same way that it's in the classroom. The core curriculum needs to be modified and adapted to meet the needs of students with special needs as well. So consider the financial life cycle. If you boil it down, there are just three phases: dependency, accumulation, and distribution. When we're born, we don't have an innate understanding of how to manage money, and we don't have the ability to earn our own way in the world. So we all begin life dependent on other people. At the top part of this slide, this top curve shows the life cycle of a typical individual, and the green line shows the life cycle of a person with disability. If you're on the high road or the low road, it's a similar path, but what varies is the length of the three phases. Someone with a disability may take a little longer to reach their accumulation phase, and they may need to exit that accumulation phase a little sooner than a typical peer. Here's an adaptive financial life cycle, which uses a timeline based on the child's age, plus 3 stages related to the parent's retirements and death. Working with clients who have children with disabilities, I use both these life cycles, which can help us assess where they are today, whether there's any unfinished business from previous stages, and what they should focus on now to get from where they are into the next stage. I ordinarily recommend families with special needs increase their savings rate by 5%. If a typical household's recommendation would be save at least 10% of your gross income for long term, then shifting from 10 to 15% with a person with a dependent that has a disability makes sense for families that are working towards a 3-person and maybe 2-house retirement. Higher savings rates can be attained by a series of small incremental changes. It's also vitally important to push these savings into the most efficient vehicles for accumulating wealth. I generally advise clients to avoid using cash value life insurance as a savings vehicle unless and until they're already maximizing their retirement accounts. It's much more important that we have an adequate amount of life insurance coverage in force, and term insurance makes that much easier to afford. A typical family with dependent children might insure each breadwinner for 10 to 15 times their annual earnings, but families with disabled relatives should consider adding an additional 5 times their annual income to the total coverage amount. Until very recently, there were no specific disability savings plans in the United States. That changed with the passage of the ABLE Act in 2014. But even so, the best way to save money for support of our loved ones with disabilities is the same as a typical family's: employer qualified plans and IRAs. It's especially important to note in this context that special needs trusts may be an essential tool for distributing assets for a beneficiary with special needs, but they are a dreadfully inefficient vehicle for accumulating assets because of their high tax rates. A married couple doesn't reach the highest federal tax bracket until their taxable income is more than $375,000. But a trust hits that same 39% tax bracket with an income of $9,000. So a special needs trust is something that you may need, but it's not the place where you can efficiently build a nest egg. So the three key elements of a financial plan enhanced for special needs are understanding the complete household financial situation and identifying critical issues, increasing the savings rate and total life insurance coverage compared to a typical household, and directing those savings into the most efficient savings vehicles. Those are the tweaks and modifications that I ordinarily recommend for families like ours. A bit more about this third phase now, creating better case scenarios. We are in a whole new world when it comes to creating secure and meaningful lives for our loved ones with disabilities. The key elements in the most creative and cutting edge planning in this field is inclusion in the broader community. As more and more people with disabilities have been included in their public schools, they have acquired not just knowledge and skills, but ambition. There is a rapidly growing number of post-secondary educational opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And as these folks move into the working world, they may struggle to keep their hard-earned money from disqualifying themselves from means-tested benefits. The ABLE Act of 2014 created a new savings vehicle for people with disabilities that is especially exciting. It's an inexpensive, flexible savings plan that encourages community inclusion through paid employment. It is built on the pattern of the 529 college savings plan. After tax money goes into it, tax deferred growth happens inside the ABLE account, and then tax-free distributions for qualified expenses come out. An ABLE account is an asset that a person with a disability can own without disqualifying themselves from Medicaid or SSI, so long as the balance is less than $100,000. That limitation means that it can't take the place of a special needs trust, but it is a great substitute for an IRA or 401k plan for folks who are able to earn a bit more than they need to get by. This allows them to accumulate funds for their own education, for a vehicle, or for other major purchase. It's a terrific new addition to the tools that we can use to help our loved ones with disabilities get on in life. Finally, to talk about this new phase, this frontier that we're operating on, I want to share with you another story that I heard from Dr. Doug Fisher at UC San Diego. He talks about a young man on the autism spectrum who, instead of being warehoused in an institutional setting his whole life, had instead been included in the public schools. When it was time for him to make that transition from school to life in the community, the team charged with helping him figure out how to make that happen included not just his family, teachers, and local service agencies, but several students who had been with him for years who understood how to make accommodations for his quirks. He tended to ramble, so he'd need a group of friends large enough to provide some supervision for him around the clock. He had an aversion to stairs, which made the beach the ideal location for his residence. The students knew which of their classmates would be attending college locally, and therefore able to be helpers, willing to provide assistance for him in return for an opportunity to live rent-free at the beach during their college years. These friends would eventually act as a sales force, helping secure contracts for the business that was created to provide this young man with a job, doing what he enjoyed, staying up all night and operating loud machinery, specifically riding a vacuum cleaner, sweeping up the parking lots of big box retailers after hours. The housemates also take turns participating in charity runs every weekend with this young man, finding that it provides a good outlet for his excess energy and reduces his urge to ramble. At one of these events, they heard another runner describe their friend as the most socially conscious person in town because he supports everything. They had seen him that often at those charity runs that they thought he was the most socially conscious person in town. Now that sounds to me like the kind of life that we might want for all of our children. You know, a chance to live a good life, getting their share of joy and sorrow, with opportunities to be themselves and to make their unique contributions to the life of a community that supports and values them. Even if their net worth never exceeds $2,000, sound financial planning can help make that happen. Okay. I'm going to unshare that. And thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you very much. A virtual round of applause for Chris Currin. Though we cannot be in the same room, we definitely want to make sure that we're sending you that energy of gratitude. That was a lot of information, very useful information for sure. Does anybody have any questions right now that they would like to send through the chat? Now is a perfect time to do that. I also just sent, while you're all storming up your questions, I also just sent an evaluation link in the chat. It's really important that everyone fills that out towards the end. Take a few moments just to do that. It should be quick. This is the 23rd annual conference, and hopefully there will be many, many more annual conferences. And with that being said, we want to continue improving every year. We want to continue delivering content that is useful for you all, that is important, such as this one that we've seen here today. Are there?
I will mention one other thing. I'm a long way from you today. But, there are 2 articles that I've written on this subject that are available on Mercer Advisors website, merceradvisors.com. There's a tab on that landing page called Insights, and if you click that Insights folder, the more recent article has just been posted within the last 10 days or so. But there's a link inside that most recent article to the original one. So there are 2 of those articles that spell out some of these things. That would be a way to get something on paper or download it to your laptop that would touch on some of these things we went over today.
Thank you very much, Chris. We appreciate all of your wisdom being shared. Would you mind sharing your, I don't know if you can share any contact information in case folks want to reach out for more resources, or can you maybe give some of the resources directly? If anybody's looking for some financial consultation, some more information for themselves, their families, who can they go to?
Right. I would, let me see if let me see. Yeah, my business email is christopher.currin@merceradvisors.com, and that's ADVISORS. merceradvisors.com, the website of my employer. As I said, our headquarters is in Denver, but we have offices all across the country. I would recommend that a lot of good information is available through parent advocacy groups, like the Down Syndrome Congress, the ARC, UCP, United Cerebral Palsy. A lot of times, other parents have experience and good resources, and those organizations are great places to go for a lot of information. In terms of financial planning help, there are a number of good organizations and directories can be found. There is a national network of fee-only planners that work on an hourly basis, called the Garrett Planning Network, GARRETT, Garrett Planning Network. And there are also a fee-only advisor, someone who's not selling financial products, is a better sort of advisor to work with if you can. The National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, NAPFA.org, is the largest organization for those types of planners. So yeah. And if someone is looking to get in touch with me, that Mercer Advisors, you can search on the Mercer Advisors website and find the contact information for me there.
Awesome. And I was trying to type your email as you were spelling it out. It was Christopher Currin at merceradvisors.com.
Yeah, there's a dot between the Christopher and the Currin. So Christopher.Currin. I'll type it in.
Awesome. I went ahead and just sent that. And I'm also typing here some of those resources you mentioned, and maybe you can add on some more that I wasn't able to, the ones I wasn't able to catch fully.
Yeah.
Those are really great resources, and we thank you. If nobody has any questions, I want to go ahead and invite you all to please fill out that survey that we sent through the chat. And there's a link in there that you can click on and just quickly, easily get that survey completed for us. That would be super helpful. Chris went ahead and sent his email there, the correct one, in the chat as well. The NAPFA is on there as well. So in case you want to look into this a little bit more. And I want to go ahead and remind everyone that after this session, we also have the community resources session that is going to continue from 2:25 to 2:55. And then from there, we have grupos de apoyo y cierre, the support groups and closing from 3 to 4. So please make sure that you all stick around. Chris, is there anything else you'd like to share for us today?
Which also just posted the name of that master pool trust that's based in Denver, Colorado Fund for People with Disabilities. They might also be a good resource for many folks.
Thank you very much. And we know that it can be very difficult to plan our financial lives. Even under normal circumstances, now much more that we're experiencing COVID, and many times with some other complications that come with some disabilities for some families. And sometimes the resources aren't there to find the support that we need that's affordable. Do you know if any of these resources have anything that can help families have access more affordably to these services?
that is a challenge. A lot of times, but one might be able to find, say, some help with legal issues around special needs planning, the special needs trust, and so forth, or just getting wills in place and things like that. I've found that for folks who don't have the means to hire attorneys at sort of a retail price, that sometimes the legal clinics associated with the law schools in town can be a good resource for people, and some of the larger organizations like the Financial Planning Association will occasionally have host like call-in shows or something where they'll make people will volunteer to provide some financial guidance on a one-time basis or something like that. Those things have also been affected by the pandemic, right? Because it's not as easy to pull people together in a call center, or to put them into a ballroom in a hotel, right, and have people come and sit down with them. So there are challenges all around, but yes, another organization too that may be of help is the Consumer Federation of America. I think it's CFA, Consumer Federation. They have some financial guidance that's not specifically geared towards people with special needs, but it's like the basics are the same, regardless of whether you or not you have a family member with a disability. They say, if everybody could use a financial plan, the families that have children with disabilities just need a financial plan on steroids. So you have to plan a bit harder.
That is very, very true. Thank you so much, Chris. I don't see any other questions and comments coming in through the chat. Your presentation was very thorough, so we appreciate that. And with that, I think we're ready to conclude. You all have a little bit of an extra break, but please remember to continue to stay with us for the rest of the conference. Again, we have the community resources session from 2:25 to 2:55, and support groups and closing from 3 to 4 p.m. It'll be really exciting. We're going to share really useful information. We're going to share some actions for you all to take. So please make sure that you continue to stick with us. But for now, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Thank you so much, Christopher, for being here to share your time, skills, and knowledge. We appreciate you, and I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you, Alejandro, for your help today, and thanks especially to the interpreter. I hope I didn't go so fast you had trouble keeping up.
Yes, thank you very, very much to Medium. Medium was our interpreter for this session. She did a great job. And this is also going to be available both in English and in Spanish. As we mentioned at the beginning, both were recorded. So we'll be happy to hear that interpretation. Great job, Medium. Thank you so much.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias. Miriam, did you have a question?
Thank you, Miriam.